Welcome, everybody. This is The Road Show. My name is Karen Jensen-Salisbury, and I'm your host today. We are so glad to have you join us. On today's program, we are privileged to have right here in the studio with us our special guest, author and missionary Vidar Ligard. Vidar, welcome back to The Road Show.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great to be here today.
It's great to have you. Vidar has a new book, actually your first book, right?
First book, that's correct.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So it's called A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. And, you show us clearly in this book, Vidar, that God wants us to be blessed, to be a blessing, and he has a good plan for his life. And I have to say, when I read it, I didn't think I needed it, but there is a lot of golden information in here, not just to choose prosperity, but how to live successfully and get better from where you are right now. But before we dig into that, why don't you give us a little bit of background about you?
Sure. Vidar Ligard, born and raised in Norway, so might have to spell the name for some people, but came to Tulsa when I was 15 because of the influence of Tulsa on the Christian community around the world. I wanted to learn more and grow, so kind of grew up in Tulsa with the various ministries here and worldwide known ministers. Learn more about missions, how to become a better minister, and then we've been working in Kenya, East Africa, since 2006, and we help people come out of poverty. We train leaders, transform people, transform lives, and really help people to understand that you don't need to look for a handout. You can just become resourceful and become a producer yourself, and that's really how we help people grow churches, institutions, schools, businesses, create entrepreneurs, and all that type of thing.
And when you say we, who is that?
That would be me, my wife, and our whole team. We've got a great team over there as well, and my wife and I, we work together in all this. So
now your wife is Catherine, and she's from Norway too, right?
That is correct.
So she came to America, and you guys met over here, though.
Yes, we met in Tulsa, both from same county in Norway.
Wow. Isn't that funny? And you never knew each other there.
We did not.
That's funny.
So
that's funny.
Amazing.
Well, again, a fork in the road. Now, so when you're talking about these principles to prosper or to win at life, right, here at the top it says a practical guide to winning at life. Who doesn't want to do that, right?
Sure.
You've proven that these principles work anywhere, with anyone, right?
We have lived and ministered on 3 continents, Africa, Europe, North America. Human needs are the same everywhere. Might display themselves slightly different, but the needs are the same. And the principles for growing in life are the same. And so we've written in such a way that it doesn't matter cultural background. It should be understandable.
So Americans can read this book as well as Africans, right?
Yes, and the book is actually at the printing press in Africa right now. And it's same content, so just
being translated into different languages.
English, yes.
English, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good language. That's a good one. Yeah, you say the answers to humanity's problems are the same everywhere, but the fork in the road is a choice. Tell us why you call it a fork in the road, and tell us about our choice.
Maybe I could share an analogy. One of the Bible college campuses that we have in Kenya is at the foothills of Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro is the largest mountain that you can climb without any special equipment. It's 19,000 feet, or close to 6,000 meters. And we see a lot of people hiking up the mountain. We work with a lot of people that live at the base of the mountain, and a lot of them, they can tell you the principles and what you need to do, and what about a guide, and about how much it costs, and the preparation. A lot of them know it, but very few actually do it. And, those that are at the top of a mountain, they never fell there. They did something to get there.
Yeah.
And the principles to getting to the top of Kilimanjaro, they're very simple. You don't need to be a master athlete. You just have to be somewhat reasonable fit and make the proper preparation. And anybody can do it. And they're proven steps, simple, but you have to make the commitment of putting one foot in front of the other in the path of the most resistance. And that's how you get to the top. And it's the same in life. There are principles. Some people are unaware of the principles. Some need to be reminded. And some just need to get a little bit of a wake up that let's go do it.
Yeah, and as I was reading, I was thinking that same thing. This is a lot of stuff I already know, but you've put it down in such an order where it's like I can take this and start taking the steps and get to where I'm going and really create a new future, or the future that I've dreamed of, by following these steps, which I found really helpful.
Yeah, it's, there's a lot of motivational material out there. And even I think sometimes we go to church on a Sunday and we get wonderfully motivated. And, motivation will wear off by a Sunday afternoon. By the time you're done with the nap sometimes, there might be a conflict showing up or whatever. There needs to be practical steps. And so we've endeavored to share a lot of the steps, practical things that we can do so that it's not just motivation, but it's also very doable.
Yeah, you say here on page 7, remember, it isn't the person who knows how to climb Kilimanjaro that makes it to the top. It's only those who are determined enough to take consistent action over a period of time. And of course, that consistent is the tough part, right?
Yes, the discipline there is key. And like I mentioned, motivation will wear off. But if you're truly going to be successful, you're not talking 1 week. You're not talking 1 month. You're not even talking 1 year. I just shared earlier with students this morning about heritage. And a reputation is something you build over a lifetime, which means you're going to be walking with the same ethical standard and the same path over a long time. And that's when you really become successful. Overnight success is never overnight. It's built over years.
Right. And so we shouldn't get impatient. We should realize this is normal if it takes a while.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I noticed, and you talk about how sometimes people tend to overemphasize one area of their life, maybe the area that they're good at, and they neglect other areas, especially the ones they're bad at, right?
Very common, very common.
Yeah.
There's, it doesn't matter whose life you look at. Everybody's having tasks that are least favorite tasks, and they tend to end up at the bottom of the to-do list if they even make it to the to-do list at all. And very often, it's those things that we don't like. Those are the things that hinder us. And so if we start doing something with those and start prioritizing better, then a lot of times we'll get further.
Yeah, so you actually advocate doing some of the hard things on your list first, right? Instead of leaving them till...
Yes, and earlier on when I was managing a small team, I found out that, this hard conversation where you had a team member that needed maybe to pick up the slack a little bit, 3 days later, you still haven't had the conversation. 2 weeks later, you still, because, we can go another day, Well, that becomes days, weeks, months, whatever. And I found out, today I'm really going to do it. So you go all day, and it's the end of the day, and you realize, I've been mulling this thing over all day. It's been messing with my mind all day. So I just decided, no, I'm going to do it right off the bat and do it in the morning so I can get it out of the way and get on with life. And so I realized when you take those harder things and get them done, the easy things you kind of automatically do anyway. So those are going to happen. So if you focus a little bit more on the harder things, then a lot of times you will, if you want to come to a higher level, sometimes you have to bring some of those values up a little bit.
Yeah, you talk about the one thing we have control over in that is ourselves, right? I mean, we like to blame external circumstances for why we aren't moving forward faster, but it's looking at you in the mirror, right?
Yeah, this is really what a lot of poverty is. It's a mindset where you make excuses. You look at circumstances. Well, my parents didn't give me a great upbringing. The neighborhood I grew up in wasn't the greatest. The school wasn't the greatest, whatever. Nobody can blame anybody from where you start in life. You don't pick upbringing and parents.
Right.
But you do choose what you do with yourself once you grow up a little bit. And those choices are choices we all have to make. And I realized that the circumstances we are in, each and every one of us, you can't control everything. But by and large, our circumstances have been formed by our thinking patterns, our habits, our actions. And most people don't ever change it, so they stay in the same circumstances and wonder why their whole life. But if we change our thinking and upgrade it a little bit, our actions will be upgraded, and then the circumstances will be upgraded. It goes in that order.
And we have control over that.
We have control over that. So,
Yay.
One day I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I realized I had just found a problem. It was myself. And it was a very hard realization, but it was also very liberating because I realized, okay, I do have control over the problem. When you blame circumstances, then you're blaming things you don't have control over.
And so what did you do right away when you realized that?
Well, we had been working in East Africa for a while, and we had grown the schools to a certain level, and we were very frustrated with where we were. And we were looking at other schools and other ways of doing things and wondering how come they have success over there. It must be an easier environment. They don't have the problem with the circumstances we have.
Right.
But then I looked in the mirror and realized I'm the problem, because if you took me over one of those other schools, I probably couldn't come up with a 5-year plan for them to bring them further from where they were. And I realized if some of the leaders in those other schools would take my school, they would immediately make some changes, maybe some changes I didn't even like. But I realized, it would grow. And so then I realized it's my own habits.
It starts at the top.
It starts at the top, that's right. So what I did, just practically speaking, I instead of setting a goal for growing in numbers, all these marketing goals, whatever goals that we had for the organization, I said, you know what? If I'm the problem, then what I need to do is I need to work on myself. So I spent 1 full year where I had no other goals except personal inward growth. So I started poring over materials, and most people, they grow during school years and then you plateau because you don't pick up that many books after you're done with school. And well, I had a great education, so that should be sufficient. But I started growing myself. That was a whole year. The school didn't grow, and honestly, I didn't care. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to grow my own thinking, habits, patterns, and so forth. Then the following year I started implemented. Then things started to grow.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to consider. That's why your chapter 1, in changing your future, winning at life, is start with yourself. And that can be painful, but it sure is the place to start.
Growth is painful. It's but you can go through the pain of just being where you are. That's painful too. It's just
right.
It's a slow roast.
Yeah.
So to speak. Instead of let's increase the pain a little bit and let's make some changes right now so that the future can be a whole lot better.
Yeah. I travel and minister a lot, and I hate to say it, but I get a lot of, well, this is a tough area. If things aren't going maybe the way we want, or, not growing the way we want, we say, oh, well, this is a tough area. I mean, I'm pretty sure every area is tough, right? Let's look in the mirror and maybe make some changes that we can control.
Well, if you're talking about believers, talking about pastors, and you're stuck in a tough area, then I go, awesome. That means you have plenty of opportunities to actually change where you're at. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
There we go.
So, it just depends on how you look at it. You can look at the problems, or you can just go, you know what? Every problem's got an opportunity in it. And if you can solve the problem and be solutions-oriented, then you're going to be helping a lot of people.
There we go. And this book helps a lot of people because it gives us the steps for getting unstuck from that point.
Yeah, that's right.
Listeners, we're talking today with author and missionary Vidar Ligard about his new book, A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to get his advice about how to create the future we want, no matter where we might be right now. Stay tuned.
I'm David Warren, here with some exciting news for Oasis listeners. We have a new mobile device app. It's free, easy to download, and lets you enjoy our refreshing music and talk everywhere you go. If you have an Android cell phone, go to the Google Play Store. And if you have an iPhone or iPad, visit the Apple Store and search for Oasis Radio Network. Be an Oasis ambassador and share this news with family and friends around the world.
There's food for the hungry, joy for the sad. I found an oasis of love. Oasis Network.
It's a great day on the road show. My name is Karen Jensen-Salisbury. I'm your host for today. And right here in the studio, we have author and missionary Vidar Ligard talking about his new book, A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. So just like we promised, let's talk about how to create the future we want, Vidar. In chapter 3, you say that futures don't just happen, and God has given us instructions to follow. There's a sure God way to success. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of people that They may not say que sera, sera, but the mentality is very prevalent. I find a lot of people that pray and sort of, well, I'm kind of waiting on God. Well, when I read Jesus' final instructions, it's go tell the world. It's all action. And the future is created by action, and our present is created by yesterday's actions. So if we want a different future, we have to realize that we're going to have to get busy about doing some different actions from the ones we have been doing. It's not going to be passive. It's going to be get up in the morning when you don't feel like it. Millionaires don't get up at 7 or 8. They don't roll out of bed 30 minutes before their appointment. They get up in the morning and they do a good job of setting their day, setting their to-do lists before interruptions and the rest of the world wakes up, so that when interruptions come, they can decide whether the interruption is worth it or not compared to what's actually on their to-do lists. And all successful people live the same way no matter what time they get up in the morning, but they're very purposeful in making sure that actions every day, they line up with what their future should look like.
Yeah, because you say here in the book, if you don't take charge of your future, something or someone else will.
Yeah, I think we've all been there that, if you got some kind of a big task you want to accomplish in the morning, you think about that task during the night. And then when you get up, you immediately start working towards it. And if you get a phone call, you go, well, I'm busy right now. I'll call you back later. Let me do that at 4 or 5 in the afternoon when I'm maybe a little bit more tired and I can follow up on phone calls. But right now I got something to accomplish. I think most people have also experienced where you didn't really have a plan for the day. You wake up, whatever time that is, but by the time you woke up and finished breakfast and checked the news or checked Facebook, all those things will set the course of the day. And kids going to school, interruptions from employees, whatever the case might be, and you'll find out that the clock's going to strike noon, and you go, what have I really done today?
Yeah.
And that's a great way to waste time, is not to plan the day and not really take charge of our own actions.
Yeah. Well, you say that here that God gives us a sure and simple way to accomplish these things, and you use Joshua as the example, and especially in Joshua 1:8.
Yeah.
Want me to read it?
No, you don't need to read
Okay.
Joshua 1:8. It's our thinking habits, which then translates into the way we talk, which translates into our actions. It's think, speak, and act according to the Word of God, and the principles are all laid out. Very often there's some really good principles in the sections of our Bibles that have not yet been underlined. And a lot of times that's where it's at.
Yeah.
We're all living our favorite scriptures.
Yeah, right.
So, but
You talk about growing into the right mindset, and you use Gideon as an example.
Gideon, he thought that he was the weakest person around. And he's, why the Philistines, why this? And I'm just the weakest. I can't do anything. That's the mindset that many have, that life just is what it is, blaming circumstances. And if you read the story of Gideon, you find out that his dad had bunches of servants. There's no way he was the poorest of anybody around. He grew up in a household where they had employees. And so his thinking just wasn't even straight with facts. It was just a loser mentality. So the first thing the angel of God did was, let's straighten out your thinking and let's think of yourself as somebody who's capable of doing something. When that becomes straight, then let's go do something.
Yeah, let's do it. And you talk about being content in life, so it's important to be content, but that doesn't mean we passively remain where we are. You say shrinking or coasting or not moving forward is never acceptable for God's people.
No, those of faith, they never draw back. They always reach forward to do more. And being content, that's not a place you get to. When I've got the house I want, when I have the car I want, when everything is perfect with marriage and kids and all of that, then I'm going to be content. No, life is a process. Life is a journey, and it's important to learn to be content where we are. Even when there are problems, it's possible to be content. Christ is in me. the joy is in me, the peace is in me. I'm content with that, but that doesn't mean I'm passive. I'm still aggressively moving forward, even though I'm content with the journey, with the process I'm going through. Success is a journey. It's not a destination.
Absolutely. We never really arrive.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. But then too, you talk about no one has a life that goes perfectly. I mean, every single person with a dream and a vision heading towards something has bumps in the road and disappointments and failures. And so you talk about attitude.
Yeah, successful people are just people that are very solutions oriented. They don't get stuck with problems. They just figure out ways to solve it. And most people work 40-hour work weeks, whatever that is. And so I'll do whatever I can during those 40 hours, and the rest is my time. Well, that kind of mentality never produces success. It's do whatever it takes to solve the problems that are in our lives, whether it's our personal lives with families, or it's our lives as employees, or if we're business owners, whatever the case might be. But it's a mentality of we're just going to do whatever it takes to fix the problems and plan out the future and build it.
Yeah, and we're going to get to those steps too as we keep going. I liked what you said in the middle of this chapter about our words. Is it important what we say?
When I started school in first grade, I think we were 3 people in that class that knew how to read and write. One of the gals in my class, she was way ahead of me. She was 3rd or 4th grade. She's writing essays with introduction, middle section,
Wow.
long stories, pages and pages of essay. But I remember that any time a teacher told us something new, a new concept we were to learn, she would say, I don't understand this. This is hard. Why do we have to learn this? Her mentality was very different. My mentality was always, I get to learn something new. Here's a challenge. Great. I get to grow. Just a very different mentality. Well, I ended up skipping 7th grade, and as far as I know, she had ended up graduating very average, still stuck in the same town, and I don't know that there is anything beyond average to show for. And it's all because of mentality.
And because of the words she said about herself, right?
Yes, of course, that mentality, it translates to how we speak, and words create future.
Yeah, you say here, so many people miss it by focusing on and speaking according to what they see in their circumstances. Isn't that easy, especially in days like we're experiencing now? Or what their emotions are telling them in the moment, but we're supposed to say what God says.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking what he says, that does create the road that we travel on.
And then acting. You say success comes from doing, not just doing something, but doing the right thing.
And that's a very key part, doing the right thing. Everybody says we're busy. That's great. Whatever our calendar is, it's always going to be filled with something. So we're always going to be busy. I quit saying that a while ago because who cares? Everybody says it. Are you about,
Who's the busiest?
prioritizing and actually working on the right things? If you work on the right things, you actually don't have to be that busy. You'll be successful anyways.
That sounds good. Yeah, for sure. Listen, I want to be sure we talk about chapter 4, which is the dependency. You talk about kicking the dependency syndrome. First, tell me what that is, really quick, and then how we can kick it.
Yeah, the dependency syndrome is all over the world. The more impoverished areas are, the more of you see it. And it's looking for someone or somebody else to provide the answers, the resources. You're looking for a handout. That's the dependency syndrome. And I think we've all either have or have had some of that kind of thinking in various areas where you're looking for somebody else to provide an answer. That needs to be kicked to the curb.
Kicked to the curb. It's not at all godly.
It is very ungodly. It's the life of God in us. Of course, we depend on God, absolutely. And we'll always have relationships with other people, and those are very important. But the mindset that I'm looking for somebody else to do something for me, and it depends on other people, that's a very poisonous mentality. We need to make sure that we ourselves are producers, we're solutions-oriented, and we come up with answers. We have the wherewithal to go find answers when answers are needed.
You've written here, growing up is all about learning to transition from being dependent to being independent, from being a consumer to being a provider, from being a taker to being a giver.
Yes, absolutely. And you see that with people that don't go very far, that growing up process just didn't happen quite right.
Tell us about Pastor Kaloki.
Yeah, that's a marvelous story. Pastor Kaloki, he came to us, and I don't remember the year exactly, 2008 maybe. Hard worker. He would go to school during the day, preach in his new church in the evening, go to work and work the graveyard shift or work all night, come back to school during the day. So I'm wondering, how on earth are you doing this? And I went out to the village where he was. Known area in Kenya, very, very impoverished. I don't see anything but poverty in this village with the kids, what they wear, everybody. And I'm looking around trying to find where is there something here that you can kind of use as a foundation in this community. I don't see it. I preached for him, and he had rented half of a mud hut. Now think about that.
Oh.
A mud hut is not much, and all he had was to rent half of it. There was a family living on the other side. He started the church on one side.
Oh, my stars.
I preach my heart out, and I think to myself, how on earth are you going to survive? You need orphanages. You need all kinds of things in this community to help this community come along. Well, I tried to encourage him the best I could, and of course we have so many other people that we're working with, and so it kind of slipped my mind a little bit. Some years later, I find out that this church, they're building a building for $20,000 US,
Wow.
which is huge in this community. And the church members have given this Pastor Kaloki a car, and I think that was about $15,000 US. So I called him up and said, hey, I want to come see you. So I went there, preached for him, look in this beautiful facility. And I can see all the members they're people of means. You can just tell the way they're dressed, the way they carry themselves and all this. And I couldn't even find that kind of a thing when I was out there the first time. And I asked him, what happened here? And he kind of looks at me dumbfounded and goes, what happened? You're the one who taught us. You should know what happened here. That's the look he gave me. And he said, well, you taught us faith, trusting God for things. You taught us giving and receiving, biblical prosperity. You taught us natural stewardship, budgeting, how to handle finances. And he said, you taught us work ethics, actually doing something and getting to it. And he said, those four things became the pillars of what I taught all these people. And he said, when I started here, and this is the way he said it, they were unemployable. And sad to say, it's a little brutal, but that's the truth about unemployed people. For the most part, they're unemployable. When I need an employee, I don't look for the ones that are just sitting around not doing anything all day, because they don't turn into good employees. You look for the people who are busy. He said they became employable. They found jobs. The ones who didn't find jobs, they started businesses, and God started prospering their businesses. And he says, and he's got, 300 people at the time that I was with him. And he says, my problem today is if I need a volunteer in church, I don't have any because everybody is busy. So the church starts a primary school because the public school has student to teacher ratio of 50-1. You can imagine that, primary school, one teacher, 50
Wow.
students. So they start a school. Well, now the parents have the means to send them to the church's private school. You don't need an orphanage. In Africa, the vast majority of kids in orphanages, they're not orphans. They're kids that have very, very poor parents. And so the solution really is, let's help these parents come out of the poverty hole, and there's no better way to help these kids. Orphanage really isn't the best long-term solution for them. But this is a great story of that whole community. Lots of businesses have been created, and the community is a lot better off today after he went through and started implementing what he was learning.
Listeners, we're talking here on the Road Show today with author and missionary Vidar Ligard about his new book, A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. Apparently, he's helped thousands of people in Africa with these principles, but here in America, the same principles can work. Vidar, how can listeners get your book?
The best way is to go to our website. Safari Mission is the name of our organization, so safarimission.org. And you can find out lots about the work that we do. The book is on the website. That's the best way to find out more information. safarimission.org.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, I want you to share with us about how any of us can tweak things in our everyday life to go from being average to becoming gold. Okay, we'll be right back.
The Road Show is a listener favorite which airs each weekday here on the Oasis Radio Network starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central. The Road Show also has a great section on our website, oasisnetwork.org. There you'll find audio archives of select past interviews, plus guest lineup and contact information, and links to our Roadshow sponsors and its host. So join us for the Roadshow, whether on your radio, computer, or mobile device at oasisnetwork.org.
Welcome back to The Road Show. I'm your host, Karen Jensen-Salisbury, and our very special guest today is author and missionary Vidar Ligard. We're talking about his new book, A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. Now, you know, as I was reading through this book, Vidar, one note that I actually wrote down here on my marker is, if you want to make more money, find a way to add more value to others. That really grabbed me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you know, one of our goals practically for everybody is to make more money. Great, fine, no problem with that. But if you think of it, whether we're employed or we're in business, whatever the case might be, the money we received last month is the financial value of the services or the products we provided. And a lot of people say, well, I'm worth more. Well, the money we were paid is not according to our worth. It's according to the value of the services or products we provided. We don't get paid for being worth something. We get paid for doing something. And so if you want to increase that, we need to find a way of adding more value to the relationships. You know, if you're a business coach, how much can you charge? You can charge in accordance with the value you're adding to the businesses that you coach. So if you'll work on yourself and become a better coach, then you're going to be providing a higher value coaching service. You can charge more. You will make more money. If you're an employee, say you're in housekeeping, okay. Well, if it's a minimum wage job, possibly, if you do a better job than everybody else, somebody's going to notice you. And if your current employer does not notice you, somebody else will, and you will, over time, you're going to get job offers where you'll be paid more. So if you over-deliver consistently in the relationship that you currently have, over time, eventually, you're going to be paid more. And so it's a matter of looking at what is the economic value of what you're providing, because that employer of the housekeeper, he thinks, well, if you quit as an employee, he is thinking he can find the same service done by somebody else for the money he's paying you. So you got to make sure that you're providing more value than that, and then he'll be afraid of losing you, and raises, bonuses, or new jobs will be coming your way. So it's all in the action.
That's really how we become gold, right?
That's how you become gold. It's when you become gold, you refine yourself. You get rid of those things that aren't necessary. You might have to get rid of that 30-minute coffee break. And if you want a cup of coffee, that's 1 or 2 minutes. That conversation with the coworker that was about the football game yesterday, great, wonderful, but you're keeping that just enough that you have a positive work environment. But you're the one making sure it's a production environment. So you start cutting out the low-value stuff. You keep the high-value stuff. You add more high-value stuff. That's how you refine gold. You keep on taking away the stuff that might be valuable, but it's not the high-value stuff. Keep on chipping that away.
And you talk in here about sometimes we set limits on ourselves. You only set that cap the day you think, I'm not willing to grow any further.
I do not believe in glass ceilings. Glass can be broken, ceilings can be broken, but everybody practically, we have some kind of a thinking. You know, if you say $1 million, most people think that's a lot of money. A millionaire doesn't think that's a lot of money. They might think $1 billion is a lot of money. A billionaire doesn't think $1 billion is a lot of money. And so that cap is just set by our thinking. Whether it's money, value in relationships, whatever the case might be. But our caps are created by us. the one we see in the mirror in the morning.
And therefore we can change it.
We can change it. That's absolutely right.
You talk about pioneers, settlers, and museum keepers. Who are they?
Well, we're in Oklahoma, and 100 years ago, roughly, we kind of settled out here. And that was settled by pioneers, the risk takers, the ones that dare to do something different from what everybody else is doing. Those are the pioneers, and we've got a lot of people that are settlers. Those are the ones that observe the pioneers, and they look for, oh, that worked, let me go do that. Of course, museum keepers, those are the historians that want to go back in history and kind of dust off the memories. And, if you're in a company, take Kodak, for example, been in the news lately. They were pioneers in the area of film, and they kept on innovating. And then late 90s, early 2000, they missed the innovation train because they didn't see the digital coming out soon enough. Other people that had more in the digital, they took over. They were the pioneers. And so if you don't keep on pushing for being a pioneer, by default, you're going to be reduced to a settler. And over time, you'll be reduced to a museum keeper if you're happy with the settling you've been doing. And so you continually have to push to grow, to be in that pioneering stage. But that's what leaders are. Leaders are people that don't look to their neighbor for examples. They think differently and look at what does everybody need to do different to get out ahead. And that's the kind of mentality that is the success mentality and the growth mentality. It's the Joshua and Caleb mentality. This is all biblical principles.
Right.
And business principles. It's all the same thing. Good business is biblical.
Yeah, and you talk about here in the kind of like what I would call the how-to part of it, you talk about reading as a way to continue to grow. Past school time, you talk about your professor at ORU and then how you select books to read.
Yeah, so honestly, I would prefer to not read. It's not my favorite way of taking in. You can go to YouTube and a lot of entertainment out there, but there's good videos out there too. So that's one way to learn. But I've never met somebody who's really learning and growing in life and successful who doesn't read. They're all readers, but I don't read novels. I don't have time for that. I read less than what I should. Everybody says you should be reading a book a week. I don't. I'm talking about 1 to 2 a month. And so I have to be very selective in what books I pick. If you read a bunch of average books, you'll turn out average. So whatever area I need to grow in, I search for the best books so that I can be better in those areas.
You talk about, as I mentioned, your ORU professor who reads 250 books a year. That's beyond my comprehension.
One book a day is what he read. Yeah.
Kind of sped read them, right?
He sped read them. I checked him on it. I brushed off a book I found from the 70s and asked him about it, and he remembered what was in the book, and he told me what was in the book.
Wow.
So there are ways that you actually can speed read. Good speed readers actually retain more information than those that slow read or read regularly. So that can be done.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so then at the end of that chapter about becoming gold, you talk about it's a continual process of refining. It takes time.
Making gold, that gold in a Rolex watch, it wasn't refined in a couple of days. It's a lengthy process. And it's some people call it, you always make 2% improvements in every area of life.
2%.
2%. You're not going to transform overnight, but if you continue to make 2% improvements, small steps in every area, every single day, over time, people will start asking you, what are you doing? What's happening to you? We can see your life is different. But it's that mindset of always, every area, you make improvements.
Especially the areas you may not be as good at.
Yeah, I remember going into medical practitioners, a doctor's office, well-known medical doctors, and I think what's happening is you go to med school, so the A students hang together, the B students hang together, the C students hang together, just like in any other school. A students get together and go, let's start a medical practice, and so you have superior medical services. This particular doctor's office, the building office was a mess. My bill was incorrect, and I get to run around, and I'm spending days and weeks trying to sort out the bill, and finally I'm so frustrated, I finally just pay the thing, even though it's overcharged, and I say, I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
And so that particular medical doctor, if he wants to grow his medical office, he better figure out his business side of things. May not have to do that personally. If he doesn't want to implement personally a better billing system, he needs to hire in the area he's weak. So, there's a long list of areas in life that you don't have to be the best husband in the world. But if you're going to have a good life, you at least need to succeed in the area of marriage.
Yeah.
You need to there's a minimum that you have to pass in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
You have to be on time, just basic things like that that needs to be done. So you need to look at all the different areas of life, and a lot of people have some weak spots that are so weak it kind of drags your whole life behind. Those need to be fixed.
Yeah. But of course, everybody has weak spots. I mean, don't get down on yourself, right? Just look at them and try to get better.
Sure. Everybody does have weak spots, but it's really dangerous if they're blind spots.
Yeah.
You don't even know about them, or you just completely ignore them.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. Chapter 6 is called What About Money? And you start off by saying money isn't everything, but it can help with almost everything.
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox there that money isn't everything, but everything can be bought with money. So
you need it. Everybody deals with it.
You need it, and money can help with relationships. You can buy coaching services to get better in areas of weakness, and that takes money. So a healthy view on money is absolutely essential for a successful life. And somebody said, well, you don't need money in heaven. No, but we're not in heaven. We're on the earth, and things here, they work by money.
Yeah.
And so it's an area that needs to be conquered.
And then you talk about a scriptural balance. We're not supposed to fret or worry or even work overly hard to chase money.
There is a balance in all things, and every road has got a ditch on both sides, or maybe a mountain wall on one side, but there is a balance in everything, and money is one of those things. There's the side of giving and receiving, and I think in a lot of our circles we've heard a lot when it comes to prosperity and sowing and offering buckets and that type of thing. That's wonderful. Isaac, he sowed in the year of famine. He didn't give to Melchizedek. He didn't give to the priest. He didn't even give to the work of God. He wanted to go to Egypt where there was better economic opportunities, and he listened to God who said, stay put in the land of Canaan where I've put you. So he obeyed, he listened, and that's part of it. But he sowed into his own farm, and I think sometimes we have to realize and remember that there is two kinds of sowing. One kind is sowing to the work of God. One kind is investing into business opportunities.
That's good.
I have never seen a person prosper financially who only invested in the things of God and didn't invest in their business, in business opportunities, didn't spend money on learning. I'm sorry that I can't find examples of it. You can find maybe a one-time incidence where they have a story like that, but consistently living life, you're going to have to invest in both places.
And if you don't know much about investing, then you learn, right?
Then you better find some really good books and start learning.
Back to improving yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you talk about, there's, of course, like you've been mentioning, there's a natural side and a spiritual side. Talk a little bit about stewardship.
Yeah, how you handle finances. I kind of look at it as there are four things you can do with money. You can save it, you can spend it, you can give it, or you can invest it. And there needs to be a healthy balance of all of it. And if you'll cut the spending side as much as possible, you'll have more to give. And God blesses, typically what God blesses with is actually opportunities. It's not necessarily money, and you have to work the opportunity. But also investing, naturally speaking, everybody should save at least 10%. That's just traditional, normal, good stewardship advisements.
You talk about attitude adjustments in giving. What we receive has more to do with how we sow than how we harvest.
I spent some time studying giving, and for most farmers, sowing season, sometimes it might be less work than the harvest. It depends on what you're sowing, but it's definitely more critical. That seed, you have to, what depth of soil, there's a lot of adjustments here, and small adjustments in how you sow can really impact what you're going to end up harvesting. At harvest time, you can hire a lot of hourly labor that don't really know a whole lot. You can quickly train them. At sowing time, you really want the experts out there.
Yeah.
And when it comes to biblical sowing or giving to the things of God, the attitude with which we sow is so critical. That it really is with an attitude that I'm giving because I want to be a blessing. And I think a lot of people have heard the giving and receiving message, but they're giving and their main motive is what they're going to get. And we should expect a return, yes.
Sure.
Just like a farmer, he expects a return, but how you sow is so critical.
Yep. Listeners, we're talking today with author and missionary Vidar Ligard about his new book, A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. You can also find out about the book and more about Vidar at safarimission.org. When we come back, I'm going to ask Vidar to share with us his thoughts about a simple system for bringing your dreams and visions to pass. Ooh, it's so good. Don't miss it.
I'm David Warren, Program Director at Oasis Radio Network and one of the hosts of this podcast. All of our hosts enjoy hearing from you, our listening family, so drop us a note. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and you'll receive new episodes on your mobile devices. And now, back to the show.
This is The Road Show, and we're having a great time today. So glad you've joined us. I'm your host, Karen Jensen-Salisbury, and I'm talking with author and missionary Vidar Ligard about his new book, A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. Vidar, help us with Chapter 7. Is it important for us to have dreams and visions?
Dreams and visions are critical. They're God-given. I think a lot of people, childhood years, you dream a lot. Teenage years, you dream a lot. In the 20s, you realize, there's other things to life. And sometimes discouragement sets in and you stop dreaming. Dreams are God-given. He does give us dreams. And a dream that can be done in the natural is a small dream. Everybody, more or less, dreams about having a great family, having a great home, having a great car. And I say, if you dream of $1 million home, I have no problem with that. I would encourage you to do so. But that's small thinking. God's dreams is always going to involve being a blessing to a large amount of other people. And so a lot of people just need to throw out dreams and upgrade them to some impossible things. Some years back, I wrote down my 15-year goals based on dreaming with God and what I believed that God wanted for our life. And then dreams, some people say, well, I want to start a business. And I ask people, what kind of business do you want to start? And they go, I don't know. Well, a dream is not obtainable unless it's defined. It needs to be a definable goal. So I want more money. Can you pray for me? Sure, I can pray for you. How much money do you need? I don't know. Well, I don't know what I'm praying for. I can give you $1. Are you happy then? Probably not. You need to define exactly what does that look like, or at least to the best of your ability. When a dream has been defined, I call it a goal, a measurable target. It should be defined in such a way that if other people read your goal, you write it down. If other people read it and look at your life, they should be able to quickly answer the question, have you obtained that goal or not? And if they have a problem with that, then your goal probably isn't well enough defined. Once you have that goal defined, or multiple goals, you now need to start planning. How do you eat an elephant? Well, you don't start with taking a bite. You have to plan a little bit, cut it up into chunks that you can manage, and then work on it chunk by chunk. And that's what planning does. I want $1 million home. Okay, what do you need land, you need plans, you need a builder, you need professionals to help you. You start lining up all those things, you start looking for land, you start looking for building plans, you start looking for a builder that will help you with those things. So that's the planning process. That planning process will have an output of action steps that need to be taken. And I think all of us, ask yourself, what was yesterday like? What actions did you do yesterday? And which of those actions are related to your dreams? We all have to eat. That probably doesn't relate to your dream. Hopefully the dream is bigger than that. So there are certain things we do every day. Packing lunch for the kids, great. It's family time. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to do that. But how much of what we did yesterday relates to our dream is a really good question to be asking. And if you can't answer that question, then it's time to sit down and reevaluate some things about where is our dream at. Now, I mentioned a few years ago, I wrote down my 15-year goals, and I dreamed as big as I possibly could. Planned, specified what those goals were like, planned them, and consistent action. You see, climbing Kilimanjaro isn't done in an hour. It's done in typically 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Consistent action over time. Well, 3 or 4 years later, I looked at my goals that I'd written down 4 years ago, 15-year goals, and they had become so small because I'd made so much progress on them that I actually went back and I had to upgrade all of my dreams. Because what you accomplish in 1 year might not be that much, but if you're very consistent in a goal, then over 3 or 4 years, what you accomplish is going to blow your mind, and you'll find out your God-given dreams are very possible to do.
Very possible to do. Well, I'll just give a little hint to listeners if they want to read this book. He's got a simple system that he uses 3 cards, one with an annual goal, one with a quarterly goal, and one with a daily to-do list. That really kind of tweaked me. I love the how-to stuff that helps us to get there. And then we have to mention Chapter 8, because the very beginning of Chapter 8, it's called Walking with God. It says, walking with God is by far the most important thing. Getting to know God is not hard, but it's the most important thing you do. So, of course, this is the beginning, really, of making a life of success.
Absolutely. Climbing Kilimanjaro is pretty worthless if you don't have the peace of God in your heart. And it all starts there. It all centers around that.
So, Vidar, this book will just help people get from where they are to a bright future.
That's the message. That's the goal, to get out of a rut and upgrade a life, get to the next level. God wants that, and we should all strive for that.
Yes. Listen, as we leave today, would you pray for our listeners?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do so. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace, your mercy, your desire for all of us to have a wonderful life, for all needs to be fulfilled, but more so for us to be a blessing. And we ask, Father, for understanding and insight for each and every one, for the plan, the purpose, the inheritance that you've made available to us, the power that's at work within us through the Holy Spirit to raise Christ from the dead. That we will understand that, and Father, that we will know and have the wisdom to take the right actions. I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. That was Vidar Ligard, author and missionary, whose new book is A Fork in the Road, Choose Poverty or Prosperity. You can get the book, find out more about his ministry at safarimission.org. Vidar, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed being with you.
On behalf of the Oasis Network, this is Karen Jensen-Salisbury with my special guest, Vidar Ligard, saying thanks for listening today. Join us next time for another great roadshow.
You've been listening to The Road Show. If you'd like to write to us, here's our address. The Road Show, P.O. Box 1924, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 74101. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. The views of today's guest aren't necessarily those of this station, but we do appreciate and thank our guest for spending this time with us. The Road Show, an Oasis Network presentation.